If someone had sat down with me and been like, have you considered these points of view? And even if they didn't flip me the next day, I was thinking about it, and I ultimately decided, you know what, this is more in line with who I am and the life that I want to live. All right, hey, well, thanks for accepting to be interviewed. So my name's Danesh, and what are your names?
I'm Margot.
Emma.
And we can cut that by the viewers. Don't want your names in it, like, totally. Yeah, okay. I don't know, these days you can find anybody with anything. Anyways, okay, cool. So thanks for accepting the interview. So today I'm just asking some questions about philosophy and cruelty. So the first question I want to ask y'all is, what does being cruel mean to y'all?
I think upsetting somebody else, like intentionally, not even intentionally or unintentionally,
Yeah, and just
someone.
and affecting, by doing something, affecting their lives in a negative way. Yeah.
And would y'all say, are people either cruel or non-cruel, or do you think it's more gray than that?
I think it's a lot more grey than that.
I think people can be selfish, and that can be, like, people are generally very selfish, and that can be a bit cruel to some people. I think.
Well, I think, if cruelty is not necessarily intentional, it can be unintentional. Someone doesn't have to know they're being cruel.
Totally. I totally agree with that. Would you say it's fair that some good people do bad things, whether intentionally or unintentionally?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Do you think that you all do that?
Unintentionally, and I might look back on things I've done and be like, God, what was I doing?
Yeah, and you have to look out for yourself sometimes as well. So, like,
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I was I look back at things I used to do, even things I used to say, I'm like, oh no, like, how could I say that? Like, how did I behave in that way? We just learn, as we get older.
Yeah, that's why there's apologies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, on that note, would y'all say, kind of like we were talking about, that you're always trying to improve? Like, if you find out that you were doing something wrong, you would try to change that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. That's how you become a better person. You learn from your mistakes.
Totally, I totally agree with that. Like we were just talking about, I was like, oh my God, I did all these terrible things. No, not terrible. I swear I'm not terrible. Okay. And so would y'all say that even today, if you guys found, or how would y'all see yourselves today as someone who tries to do, are you people who try to avoid cruelty where you can and try to always improve?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've been unintentionally cruel, but you realise sort of in hindsight as a result of, someone else's perspective on the situation, definitely reflect on it and sort of take it from there and grow as a person.
Yeah. What was your question again? That if we're we're cruel people,
or do you see yourself as people who are always seeking betterment and people who are always seeking to improve? I think that was the question I asked.
Yeah, I think I would be in that category. I wouldn't say I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm cruel, but I wouldn't also say I'm not cruel. Like,
Totally.
I think also because at our age, early 20s, you're still changing so much as a person and sort of growing so much that you're so, at least I'm very open to listening to what other people have to say about me, I guess, and sort of changed as a result of that.
And also I think because we're traveling in Mexico now, and I think I'm learning from different cultures, because in different cultures things can be considered cruel.
Totally.
So I think the more I'm traveling, the more I'm learning about things that are cruel in this culture, and then I'll take that with me when I go home.
That's funny. Do you think I could say the reverse? Because something is considered okay in a culture, then it's morally justified?
Because something is okay in one culture, you can do it in other cultures. No, because every culture has different religious rules and cultural. So no, I don't think so.
So what about, I live in countries where it's okay to beat women or treat them as subhuman. Just because it's okay there, does that make it, because in their culture that's accepted, do you think that should make it universally accepted?
No, not at all.
No.
I mean, slavery, obviously we've moved past that point in in sort of most countries, at least where we come from. It's not like we reflect on that and be like, oh, that's acceptable. So I think, definitely time seeks to sort of change those things which are morally unacceptable.
Totally.
I think in multiple 100 years to come, I think a lot of the things that are cruel in some countries, beating wives or something. I don't know if that's like okay in any country, but if it would be okay, that would evolve and develop, I think, as well, to be not accepted.
I hope so. I totally agree. And it's funny how we're talking about things that change. Like I had something that like really changed me a few years ago, and I'm sure we'll get to that in a second. That's totally changed the way that I see things. So on that note, like, so let's say there's like a chocolate you guys love, like those, you know, those, what are those? Like, do you guys eat those sprinkles in Holland? You know, those? Yeah, I love them too, but I can't say it. Well, maybe, how do you say it?
Hagelslag.
Hagelslag?
Hagelslag.
Hagelslag?
Yeah, that's good.
Hagelslag. Okay. Godverdomme. I got that one. You'll have to bleep that one out. No, but okay, so what if there was one version that you knew when you bought it, like let's say a child was beaten every time you bought it, or there was child exploitation involved in one of the sprinkles and one of the brands, and the other brand that was also always available, same price and everything, and it was also there. Would you change from buying the brand that you always had that included the children being hurt to the brand that doesn't include the children being hurt?
Yes, this is a trick question.
I don't know, but I think if I knew about it, for sure. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of companies that just don't, you know, explain that to the customers. So then, of course, like I probably do it by accident because I just don't know that in my hagelslag, like there's children.
Totally.
Children in hagelslag.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? There's like bits of children. That'd be insane. So what if? Okay, but so like, would you, if your friend was doing it though, if you knew for a fact that that was happening, and your friend was doing it, would you? What would you try? Would you judge them, or would you try to change them? Would you try to say, hey, like maybe not?
I don't know. I think education is probably the sort of strongest means. Like I've got a lot of vegan friends and very environmentally conscious friends. And for example, living with someone for a year who is much more environmentally conscious, to me, like he would never judge me for things I did, but definitely sort of being around him and listening to his sort of arguments for things definitely made me view things in a different perspective and pick up on some of his more conscious habits because I wasn't aware of how to adapt to those before seeing that myself. So I don't think judgment's a good mechanism because I think that puts people off more than it encourages people. But I definitely think, you know, sort of friendly education is a pretty strong way to do it.
Suggestion over judgment.
Not even suggestion, but just, you know, the exposure to seeing someone.
Yeah. And so let's say instead of children being, so you mentioned vegan, so let's say instead of children being hurt, you found out that it was dogs being hurt, like there were bits of dogs in the whatever, you know, the sprinkles. Would you still change your actions? Would you still stop choosing the one with the dog bits in it?
Well, I mean, you know, we eat meat because, well, some people eat meat because it's nutritious, right? Sort of historically, it's what we've always eaten. It forms such a big part of our diet and our culture. So I think that's why people are resistant to, you know, changing their habits in terms of eating meat. But, like, you know, you don't need dog in hagelslag to make it hagelslag. So I think that's like...
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a fun... So do you think, like... It's funny you mentioned it. Do you think you need, like, animals to be in, like, hot dogs or pizza or, you know, hamburgers, or do those, or even just good food, or do you think that can exist without having pieces of animals in it?
I think it can exist without, but I think, you know,
it's not necessary.
Well, I think a lot of countries are defined by, you know, their food culture, and that food culture exists from what grows and what's present in that country, and therefore I think that's probably why people have such a strong sort of connection to it and find it difficult to substitute that. And I think, you know, gradually we're moving towards a place where people actually are able to share, like, foods that are, for example, vegan, because more and more people are becoming vegan, right? It's difficult to do that if no one is vegan, to then put a meat-free burger on the table.
Totally.
It's not going to like it as much.
Totally. People are going to be weirded out by it.
Shift.
Totally. And so to that point, though, do you think there's something inherently... do you guys think there's even anything wrong at all with animals being inside of food?
No.
No.
So do you think that... it's okay for animals to be killed to be put into our food?
Well, I think my answer to the previous question is no in our current culture. But I think as we move forward, we'll probably shift our culture so much that actually we will all kind of have that opinion. Like we kind of already do, but because it's still so much part of our lifestyle, it's difficult to say, oh, it's super wrong because, you know, we're still participating in that. But I definitely think as more people move towards it, we'll definitely start to reflect a little bit more and be like,
And so I totally agree. Like that's something that I reflected on a lot, and something that y'all talked about was culture and, you know, not being a good justification. Do you think that in this case that logic would dictate that maybe we shouldn't be eating animals today? Because even, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think it's also such a gradual change. Like we can't go like that from one day to the next.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we're moving towards that for sure in a lot of cultures.
And what about you two personally?
I think like,
well, I try to like buy biological meat because I don't agree with like how some animals are killed for my consumption. But I have been raised to eat meat, so if I do it, I'd rather do it in like in a good way. Right. Exactly, biological way.
It's awful. It's awful what happens to them in the factory farms.
Yeah, I think like when I'm cooking my own food for just like my own dinner for subsistence, like I usually don't use meat. But like if I'm going to a new country and like I want to explore like every aspect of it, like I'm not going to say no to like their main dishes, which include like meat or fish. So
of course,
I think it's a balance.
It's really
of course, I totally
exactly.
I totally understand, and like I remember when I was considering about eating animals or not, I also thought, you know, I'm never gonna, like, you know, I'm gonna go to Mexico and have some tacos, you know what I mean? So I totally understand where y'all are coming from. But on that point, so you were mentioning that, well, we talked about how horrible what happens to animals in the factory farms is. Why is that horrible?
Well, it's just very, like, people wouldn't do that to humans, and for some reason they think it's okay to do those kind of things to animals. When that's not really a fair point to say because we don't kill humans to eat, but yeah, just the way that some farms are like set up is just very cruel.
I don't know. I think for me it's sort of the mass consumption aspect of the meat, which I'm opposed to. You know, where there's no, you know, sort of complete neglect of an animal's welfare. Whereas I think, you know, eating meat, like a cow that gets killed at the end of their life, like that's fine. You know, or like, I think sort of, if there's a consideration for animal welfare and the sort of sustainability of it, I'm nowhere near as opposed to it as, you know, a huge chicken farm or like pig sheds or something. Like
it's all about just the scale at which it happens is the issue. Something I like, actually I really like what you said. You mentioned that you made the comparison to humans. We never do that to humans. But then you also mentioned, but we wouldn't kill them for food either. Do you think there's like do you think there's a nice way, like the right way to kill animals for food?
It's a really good question. But I think what Margot just said, like if a cow is old and at its end of its life, then, you know, like it would be a waste not to use that food, if I can say that.
Yeah, like roadkill, for example. You should be able to eat roadkill.
Yeah. I've heard that one. I mean, I understand where the logic comes from. So something I really like that you said too was, well, so you mentioned that killing animals, or what we do to animals in factory farms, is wrong because it would be wrong to do it to humans. So what if we applied that logic to, would you guys agree that eating a human and killing them at the end of their life, would that also be okay because they're at the end of their life and they've had a good life? And I'm mostly doing that because that's what we that's the logic that we use to say, okay, well, what happens to the factory farms is probably messed up. So does that apply similarly in this case?
Well, I don't think humans will ever, or most humans will never eat other humans just because that's a bit strange. But we do kind of use organs and pieces of people for other people's benefit, you know, like other people's organs when they're at the end of their life to save someone else. Like, so I think in that way we could kind of compare it like that, but we just wouldn't eat other humans, I think.
Right, we wouldn't. And would you say what happens to humans when we die and we give up our organs? Let me know if you guys want to switch. Like, when we die and we give up our organs, do you think that's the same as what happens to animals when we raise them and kill them? Do you think it's an honest comparison?
Well, I feel like this is kind of going down a tangent of like, yes, like in principle, like I don't actually think like consuming animals is actually sort of philosophically and morally correct, but at the same time, you know, we've got thousands of years of culture, like a whole culture identity, life upbringing is built on that. Like I can't just say that, like, you know, you just can't ignore that fact, right? I think that's so strong and prevalent that, you know, yes, I'm against killing animals, but also like I don't think that means I'm going to be vegan because of sort of how the world is built almost right now, you know.
Do you think it's fair to say, in the same way, do you think this is a fair comparison? I'm against killing animals and I'm not vegan. I'm for feminism, but I vote for politicians who are anti-feminism, and I don't think women deserve the same rights as men. And be honest with me if you think that's like a fair, you know, if that's a fair analogy or if that's not a fair analogy.
I mean, in theory, yes. But
yeah, I think that's a fair analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's all. Yeah. No, I'm glad. And so obviously, I mean, if it's not obvious, like I'm vegan, and we're both vegan, and we're just trying to like talk to people and have conversations about things like like ways that I got, you know, ideas that I got pushed on that I'd never been challenged on in my life, and that made me think, oh my God, like wait a second, you know, I am against animal cruelty, but I don't behave that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like personally in my life, like I feel like I'm taking it in small steps, you know, like I don't cook meat for myself, like, or rarely. And like where I am in control of what I buy, like I'll try and buy it like very like sustainably, but yeah, like I don't want to miss out on a food culture if that's my only exposure to it.
I think for me the difficulty is putting a label on myself. Like I'm a student on a student budget, so I don't really cook with meat when I'm at home either.
Yeah,
but
it's cheaper, yeah?
When I go to friends' barbecues, I just kind of feel a bit bad saying, you know, I can only have the lettuce. You know, they've cooked a whole barbecue for me and I can only have their lettuce. So I think I don't want to restrict myself, but I also do really agree with all like the stuff that you said, and I'm aware of that. And like you said, I think it's small steps. I think maybe like in 10 years I'll be like, you know, I can finally put that label on myself and restrict myself to it.
I think like for example, like cooking for my friends, like sort of 4 or 5 years ago, like I would go with something that would probably sort of be meat fish based, and like there'd maybe be one vegan friend who you'd cook something else for. But now that actually like so many of my friends are either vegan or vegetarian or kind of just prefer not to eat meat anyway, like I will always in a group cook a veggie or vegan meal because like clearly there's a sort of been a shift, right? And I think those kind of things make it easier for other people to adapt as well.
I couldn't agree more, and like that's something that I think we love about being vegan is that now that I'm always invited to my friend group stuff, they're always thinking about it, you know. So there's a lot of power that we even have as individuals. I went to a wedding this one time and they changed the vegetarian option to a vegan option just because I was there, and they were like, whatever, dude, we'll just make it vegan, it's just easier. So something else you mentioned was like the environmental and ecological issues, which I think is another great reason to be vegan, and sort of like a more reductionist approach, reducitarianism. I got that one wrong, but anyways, do you think that, again, doing this analogy, is this a fair analogy? Like, I am I'm a feminist, so I've reduced my domestic abuse to my wife. Instead of doing it every single day, I do it once a week, or I do it once a month. You know, that's pretty good. Right, that's better than doing it every day. Is that fair to say that's the same when it comes to killing animals for food?
I think no, because in our culture at least, like domestic violence is like a total no-go, and I think that's quite generally agreed upon, whereas veganism is still slightly more on the sort of not controversial side, but just not as a mass movement, you know.
So actually no, go ahead.
No, it's okay, you got it.
So let's change the phrase veganism to anti-violence, non-violence. Do you think if we remove that label, do you think that changes your perspective of, or maybe even better said, non-violence towards animals? Do you think that is a popular idea that a lot of us have?
Well, if you're a vegan because you're against violence against animals, but I don't necessarily think that violence against animals and eating meat are mutually exclusive. Like, I don't think all meat that comes on the table is a result of violence against animals. Is that what you mean?
I love the way you put it. And can you tell me a way that can you tell me how that would be the case? Like, how would you get meat on your plate without violence?
For example, like as we said, if you like roadkill, like end of its life, like
totally,
you know, or a sort of like animals can get killed in so many different ways. Like you can slit their throats open and let them bleed out, which I don't think is, or at least in my culture, I don't view as sort of conventional or the preferred way of killing an animal. But I think there's ways to do it where you can sort of make it a bit more short and less harmful or painful.
I'm gonna stand up. My legs.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
So, and I love the point that you made about like make it less harmful, right? Do you think if someone shot me in the head right now, I have lived an amazing life, and it was painless, would it still be cruel?
Yeah. But because you're taking away someone's life without them consenting to it.
And isn't that what we do to the animals? Because of course we can talk about the roadkill and like end of life, but do you think is that how we're eating our meat? You know?
Yeah.
No, we're not.
Yeah, right. That's not how we're doing it. And again, I would always go back to like, would I ever treat my dog that way? Would I eat my dog at the end of their life, or is that a lack of respect?
Yeah.
What do y'all think?
No, as I say, like I completely agree with sort of all your points. But as I say, it's like it's a hypocritical thing because I still eat meat, right? But I think like it's a difficult cultural thing to escape, and for me, it forms part of sort of like my enjoyment and experiences of things.
It goes back to like your first question. Like I think we are cruel because we do eat meat.
Yeah.
And we're
but
hypocritical.
Yeah.
Do you think that makes us? But does that make us? Can bad people do? Can good people do bad things unintentionally?
Yeah.
Right. So the thing I want to make that clear is I don't think y'all are bad people. Of course not. And is it like that you know, most people do eat animals. So what I'll leave you with, kind of the ultimate question is, what do you like? Does taste pleasure? Does something that makes me feel good? Is that more valuable than life? Than someone's life?
No. But I don't think the taste is the only reason why we eat meat.
But that's the reason you just gave, though, right? Or sorry, I don't mean to misinterpret.
No, I don't think so. Like, I don't know. I think like it's a sort of a more deep-rooted thing than just taste. Like as I say, it's part of identity and culture, and like I think yeah.
Didn't we agree that culture is not a good excuse for doing bad things?
No, but it's an excuse for the way we've been behaving in the past, and that it's like slowly shifting.
Right, but
I think we both agree with everything you've said.
Yeah.
But
like we can't change culture from one day to the next, right? We can change our own eating habit,
right?
But that doesn't change the culture from one day to the next.
Right. Okay, I know I said this was my last question, but I just want to maybe have you think about this. Would you say that because I lived in a society of slavery or racism, even if my personal action wouldn't change it and it would still be there, does that make it okay for me to be racist or own slaves or harm women or harm people of the LGBT community?
No.
Well, thank you guys so much for the interview. Well, unless you guys want to say anything more?
No.
I mean, we're both cruel and hypocritical. Yeah.
Well, I hope
that's the conclusion of this interview.
No, I hope
we're having a great holiday. It's just made our day.
I hope that's not.
We're gonna be eating our burgers and being like, shit, what are we doing?
So I have got some good news. If you guys want, I can give y'all some just amazing vegan restaurants. I will tell you, they have the best vegan tacos in the world in Mexico.
Really? Oh, I'd love that.
I mean, why wouldn't they have them here? We want to eat tacos too. Damn, you know.
Wanting to try cactus actually.
Yeah, they got cactus there too.
To be fair, we've been here for 3 days, and we've both said like we're kind of missing the vegetables and like the non-meat options.
Yeah.
A salad with just vegetables last night. I was
This
just
would be great because we want to have some more meat and
less
more
meat and more veggies.
vegetables.
Yeah, well, I'm so glad. Thank you guys so much for staying for the conversation. And like I promised, I'll sing you that song. And I'll leave you all with the information. And then if you guys want, I'll give you the YouTube channel and stuff. You guys want to check it out. Because I make content. Yeah, because I make content. And again, this isn't to make people feel bad. It is for people who I think are like me. If someone had sat down with me and been like, Danash, my name's Danash, I forgot if I even said that. Like, have you considered these points of view? And even if they didn't flip me the next day, I was thinking about it, and I ultimately decided, you know what, this is I think this is more in line with who I am and the life that I want to live. So.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all so much. That's my second one. So, anyways, all right, I'm gonna pull out the song now.